What's that? Just checking it out.
I want to get ground from the back
Huh.
I got something reflecting back at me over there.
You do?
Yeah.
Where? There.
I don't know if it's like eyes, but yeah, there's something reflecting there.
Is it up on the hill? Careful.
To our left, up on the hill, right there, dude.
Where? Is it moving? Come with me.
Well, at the time, I didn't really know. I didn't know what was happening. I was suspecting, and then, like I said, when the second rock was thrown, I said to my friend, "That this is no bear. Do you still skeptic on the Bigfoot thing? Because I was thinking it has to be that, like, because of the size of the rocks." I don't think they're out to kill us, unless we threaten them, corner them, threaten them, injure one of them. Then they have it out for, humans. But I would worry more about black bears surprising a bear with cubs and mountain lions.
My name is Justin Chernipeski. I guess I'm a self-proclaimed explorer and adventurer. I've always been very passionate about the outdoors. I love being outside. I love discovering new and interesting things. For as long as I can remember, I've always had a deep interest in the unknown and all the great mysteries that exist in the world. Bigfoot's one of those mysteries, and it's what I'm now looking for. My adventure began with a grueling road trip to Yorkton, Saskatchewan in the fall of 2014. I was on my way to meet with my dad, who a few years previously claimed to have had his own Sasquatch experience. For the past few years, he had told me his story over and over again until I finally decided to follow up on it. I sat down with him and interviewed him for what seemed like hours, trying to get to the bottom of it. This interview was my first step into the world of Sasquatch.
Well, it's been quite a few years ago, actually. I started seeing documentaries on Bigfoot and was kind of a skeptic. And then in the recent years, I moved out to Vancouver Island. You know, there was a lot of sightings out there, and I just studied more on it. And it was interesting because it was right there where I live. Well, when I was living on Vancouver Island, I became good friends with a friend of mine that I met up there. And we naturally did a lot of fishing because we had that in common. He went to the fishing store and got maps of old logging roads on, you know, all these little lakes. And there was one particular lake that we did go to, we found. It was a very small lake, beautiful, mountains all around. And it's, you could see right to the bottom because it's shallow. You can see the fish. It was just amazing. Yeah, and we probably went there, I would say, about 4 or 5 times. Then the 6th time, I would say, we drive up there and back the truck up and unload the little rubber dinghy that we were fishing on. Then all of a sudden, this huge rock, like a really big rock, starts coming down the kind of a gravel slope and hitting trees as it's coming down, and it like totally shocked us. So my friend, he's like shakes his head and he goes, something big must have you know, threw this rock down or rolled it over this cliff or something. And he's a total skeptic on Bigfoot also. So we get fishing on the lake, and shortly, like, we're fishing for 10 minutes, 15 maybe, and lo and behold, another rock. But this was at, you know, right at the lake. And he was, the way the skiff was, the boat was facing, I was in just perfect line with this. And he was, because I was on the back of the boat and he was on the front, so he was facing towards me. And so what I seen is a great big rock, again, thrown against a big spruce tree, and it bent it right down, and then it flipped and landed in the water and made a huge splash. It was like, oh boy. And that time my friend looked over and it's like, what is that? And that again was another big rock, you know, and we're not that far away. So this is like within 15 minutes. My head was, you know, facing that direction, and I just first seen the tree go down. It was probably about a 16-foot spruce tree, at least. It would take quite a rock to fling that, because the base of this spruce tree is, you know, it was probably 8 or 9 inches, I would say. I didn't think they had that much spring to them, but they sure do. I was really surprised how good of aim somebody had to get this thing right in the middle of the tree until it got to that point to, you know, tip off this tree, you know. And so it has to be a big rock to take a tree down like that. And then the tree went like this. It was, wow. It wasn't just a little rock like this thrown. It was a big rock, and it took something big to throw a rock like that. So I said to my buddy, I said, "Oh, you don't believe in Bigfoot yet, do you?" He goes, what was that? You know, he was just blown away by, you know, because it's not a bear, obviously. we're the only ones in there. There's only one road in. And I don't believe a human could throw a rock that size up 10, 12 feet up to the spruce tree. That's probably roughly, I would say, the distance where it hit the tree. I told my friend after the rock was thrown by the water on that tree, I told him, let's go a bit closer and see if we can see what did this. And he wouldn't go. He didn't want to go any closer. So we ended up fishing on one side of the lake instead of going all the way around like we usually did. We were pretty scared after that a bit. We were cautious, and I was we were there for probably 2 or 3 hours, and I was constantly looking around in the bush and in the openings up on that mountain ridge, but never seen anything.
After trying to make some sense of my dad's experience, I packed my gear, hopped in my vehicle, and began a 2,000-kilometer drive in the opposite direction to Vancouver Island, hoping to find this lake. The entire time I was on the road, I questioned how seriously I should take this experience, knowing fully that rocks can easily just fall or break away from a cliff. I admit elements of the story are very odd, such as the rock flying out from the shore and hitting a tree, pushing it over until it was completely horizontal. But that's why I began this journey in the first place, to find answers to all of the questions that I had. And there was only one way that I knew I could do that. So I finally found the turnoff for Henry Lake, and it is pouring out. I actually drove right by it and had to turn around, but there's no signs to it. I mean, I'm just glad to be at this point, so I'm gonna head up the road. Hopefully it's not washed out anywhere, but it looks like it could get pretty bad. The truck seems to be burning oil or something. It doesn't smell very good. I hope this is the right road. Like, I'm not even 100% sure. I think it is. There's so many gnarly looking rocks on this road. This side of the road is just a sheer cliff. It's just a drop off. If there was like a landslide or anything, this would just be absolute hell. There's rocks that slide down all over the place. The chances of it being a Sasquatch, I don't know. Rocks do fall naturally a lot. It happens all the time. No, that's not it. What's this? I'm just going to refer to my maps here. This could be it here. Check though. This could be it still. I don't know. And the only way to really know is get cell service, some kind of signal, but I'm not getting anything. There's a pretty distinct feature in the road where there's a loop in it, and if I find that, then I know I'm on the right trail. So I just stopped here because my engine was heating up quite a bit, And so I checked on that, and then I noticed that this stick is in this tree right here. Like, I don't know. It's too big to have fallen from this. Look at. Well, now I just f***ed it up. But like, it was just sitting there, like something put it there. I don't know if it's supposed to mark anything, but it is my first find, you know. Maybe it is from a Bigfoot. Whatever it was, it's kind of bizarre. Because if you look at the branches up there, they are a lot smaller. And if they would have fallen, you know, they would look a lot different than that. And they would have needles on them. And this looks like it's from a totally different tree. So I'm just on the road. This road goes to Henry Lake. Yeah, very weird. Anyways, I'm going to move on to the lake. Unsure of what to think of the weird stick in the tree, I got back into my vehicle and pushed on towards Henry Lake. After being lost for nearly 4 hours in the maze of muddy logging roads, I finally got back on track and arrived at my destination.
Well, at the time, I didn't really know. I didn't know what was happening. I was suspecting, and then, like I said, when the second rock was thrown, I said to my friend, "That this is no bear. Do you still skeptic on the Bigfoot thing?" Because I was thinking it has to be that, like, because of the size of the rocks. But when you have an experience like that happen, you have to wonder what that is and what is there. That's why I wouldn't want to stay overnight there too much unless I was in a vehicle. The tent, no, because there are black bears up there, and I was really surprised that this happened. And like, I do believe it was a Bigfoot, not because I believed in them before, but I've actually had the experience of having 2 rock experiences, not just one. But I think that it could have been a warning to scare us, or just to let us know that something's there, They're letting us know probably that they don't really want us there, because that's their territory.
Reports of Sasquatch go back hundreds and hundreds of years and span from the coastal regions of North America all the way to the Far East. However, the highest concentration of these reports are in the Pacific Northwest. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I have to admit I had no experience in the field of searching for evidence of the creature's existence. One thing was for sure, and that was the fact that I was incredibly nervous and quite scared to venture into the unknown. The thought of going after an unknown hominid that would tower over me and potentially rip me to pieces if I ever got in its way wasn't very settling. So, this is Henry Lake. It's very scary looking, I guess. That fog looks pretty creepy. Though I have to say, it is a bit bigger than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be really tiny, but so I guess over there is where that second rock hit one of these trees along here and bent it over. I'll have to go check it out in the morning. I am really scared right now. Every little noise I hear and every branch that moves gives me a chill, just because I'm expecting Sasquatch, and I don't even know if they're real. I keep thinking I hear voices. I'm just scaring myself. Yep, I don't like that. So, this is my shelter. And I guess I'll, set up my equipment inside there. And that's where I'll hang out. Mostly, I'm still gonna sleep in the truck because I don't feel safe. So, sometimes the rain lets up a bit, but I don't think it's gonna stop. I don't think it's gonna stop at all. Not hearing anything back. I have to find a way to get over there through the bush and along the shore over here, because that's where the rocks were thrown. Well, maybe, I guess one must have come down here or here and then stopped. And then the other one was thrown out and hit one of those trees, bent it over, and it plopped in the water. So. But if you look closely, you can see there's a lot of rock up there, and it looks kind of loose. So I don't see why it couldn't have just been a rock falling. But this does look like where a Bigfoot would live. This looks like a really prime area. Sometimes I just stop and listen and look, because you never know. Something could be watching me right now. Chilly. I might have to layer up here. And anything could be lurking up there. What do you think the biggest dangers are for me going out there?
The biggest dangers for you going out there? Well, there should be more than one person. I worry about mountain lions and black bears. More mountain lions, obviously, but at nighttime, out in the wilderness and the mountains, you can hear all kinds of noises. So if you know what a black bear obviously sounds like when he grunts, and all mountain lions don't make any noise, so you don't know when they're behind you, and if they're hungry enough, they will attack. If you did see one at nighttime and you had an experience that something was shaking your vehicle when you're sleeping, you just make sure you have your keys in the ignition. I don't think it would be like that. That's just scary in itself, especially if you're by yourself. So I don't think they're out to kill us, unless we threaten them, corner them, threaten them, injure one of them. Then they have it out for, humans. But I would worry more about black bears surprising a bear with cubs and mountain lions.
So right now, I'm gonna put this trail camera just on this tree right here. I'm not gonna turn it on until I go to bed tonight, but if something walks up to my truck and wants to scare me in the middle of the night and shake it and try and threaten me, at least I can get a picture or a video of it. I think it's a good spot. I'm also gonna set one up that road there, so if anything comes down that road, I'll also get that on video. I think that should be good. I'm gonna go set up my other trail cam. I'm here. And this one's gonna go down the road. As it gets like foggier and darker, I get more and more creeped out. And I don't really want these branches in the way. Now, whatever was up there might have seen me put that camera up. I don't know, maybe they won't come down there now, but if they're smart enough, you know. I don't know how intelligent these creatures are, if they exist. Some think they're more like animals, and some think they're closer to human. So if they're closer to human, you'd think they'd be pretty damn smart. I mean, like chimpanzees and stuff are very smart, and their DNA is extremely similar to ours. Before starting this journey, I read up on the island's extensive collection of Sasquatch reports. I was amazed to see how much more intense they were when I compared them to reports from the mainland and into the Rockies. Stories of people having their vehicles flipped over onto their sides in the middle of the night definitely took the cake in my mind of what is scary. This kind of aggression must come from a strong sense to protect their territory from outsiders and to ward off any kind of danger. Being alone in an unfamiliar area so far from home was quickly having an effect on my mind, as I was constantly feeling like I was being watched. Every little noise sent a chill up my spine, and there were multiple times where I swear I could hear some sort of voice nearby.
One of the biggest things years ago that fascinated me the most was the size of these things. 6 to 8, 900 pounds. That's huge. And that's, it's not the big feet, it's the size of their bodies that's massive. And they walk on 2 legs. That's the biggest thing that fascinated me. I wonder what a black bear or a grizzly bear does when they bump into a Bigfoot in the bush. I think they go the other way. You better get a new pair of shorts close by if you run into a Sasquatch.
Nice to have a fire going tonight, but everything's so wet, all the trees are so wet that I think it'd be impossible to start. I keep thinking I hear like voices. Can't tell. My plan for tonight is to just wait here, wait for something to come along. I made those whooping calls earlier, so maybe something heard them and came to this area, I do wish my dad was here. I mean, he'd love this. Going out searching for Sasquatch. It sucks that he can't be here right now, but there's always
time for that to happen in the future.
So, what I'm gonna do now is just try and make some noise. One of the things that the Bigfoot are supposed to do to communicate is to, they'll either do wood knocks or they'll smash rocks together, kind of make like a banging sound. So I'm gonna try to do that, and I'll see if anything responds. It's not really doing too much. They're probably just looking down at me thinking, what an idiot. It's getting pretty scary out. It stopped raining. That's good. That makes me happy. Sasquatch have been known to clack rocks together from time to time, perhaps as a way of communicating subtly to one another without completely giving themselves away. The effects of my rock clacking were extremely questionable, as it was difficult to produce any kind of echo. Whooping calls, however, carried very well through the landscape and were much more practical. As darkness fell, I prepared myself for a long and uncomfortable night. Was anything going to approach my camp and terrorize me? I wasn't sure, and the only thing I could do was wait and see. So right now, I've just been spending the last little while kind of preparing my truck for a quick getaway, if it comes down to that. A lot of people think that the Sasquatch is a nocturnal animal, and I guess the theory behind that is because a lot of the encounters that people have had, they've had kind of reddish orange eyes, and it was at night. So, like your pet cat, when you see it hiding in the dark, it's got kind of a glow to its eyes. Well, apparently it's the same thing with Sasquatch. Now, right now I'm just kind of scanning the trees and the ridge for any movement, because I think they might start coming out if they're here. I've also heard that in a Sasquatch family there will be usually one male and multiple females, like 3 or 4 females, and they'll breed together, and have children. Yeah, I guess that's usually the family dynamic, but who knows for sure. It could just be a bunch of nonsense. I just heard something in the bushes back there. Maybe I shouldn't have made those whooping noises, because it'd be really scary to have a visitor in my camp tonight.
I think my friend, he wonders about the same thing till this day. And I think he moved out to Ontario about a year or 2 after this happened, just like I moved back to Saskatchewan. And I think he probably thinks about it once in a while too, because it's something that doesn't happen every day when you go fishing.
Would you ever go back there?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to go back there, and I would like to take the time to do what you're going to do. Vancouver Island, it's basically a rainforest in the wintertime, and in the summer it's just beautiful. So it is a beautiful natural spot for them to want to be.
My dad is right. Vancouver Island is a prime location for a Sasquatch to want to live, and the same goes for all of the neighboring coastal regions. The forest is very dense and provides excellent concealment as well as resources necessary to survive long term. The climate is relatively mild year-round, and it's easy to understand how this temperate rainforest could be home to an ape-like being. This is the first time I've seen blue sky over this lake, and I don't know if you can see behind me. It's kind of pretty. What I'm gonna do this morning is walk around that road. You know, that road goes around the whole lake, so I'm gonna walk along there and see if I can find any tracks. You know, some people have found tracks that are like 20 inches long. That is a huge foot. So any creature with a track like that must be absolutely enormous. Because a lot of people find tracks on logging roads. That's where most of the castable tracks are found. Also in creek beds, wherever it's like sandy and lots of dirt. This is pretty gravelly though, like I'm not making any impression with my feet. I also haven't seen any like tree breaks. Because what I know, Sasquatch like to snap trees up. You know, probably 6 or 7 feet up the tree to kind of mark trails, mark their territory. And I haven't seen anything weird like that. Ground's pretty wet right here. I did find an old glove. That's probably the closest thing I'll see to a footprint. It's sad though that they have to cut away so much of the forest like this. If they didn't do that, I'd probably run into a Sasquatch. You find little waterfalls like this all over the place, all along these hills. You know, the water has to go somewhere, and it's going right into Henry Lake. I'm getting closer to the area where those rocks fell. So I'm gonna have to be careful and keep an eye out because I don't want to get hit by anything, even if it is just a falling rock. Like, that's killer. And these hills are really steep, so any rock that does fall is gonna get a lot of momentum. You know, and could potentially bounce up, hit some trees. Right now I'm more scared of mountain lions than I am of Sasquatch. Because they are out here. I mean, Vancouver Island has the highest density of mountain lions in North America. Oh, this has got to be where the rocks came from. They're so loose up there. Any one of those rocks can fall at any time. I don't know. I just don't know.
What the scientists are wanting is a body. And I don't think they're going to get one for a long time unless... And then there's, you know, why would we want to kill one just to prove that it's alive and it exists? Especially if the population of them are not that many. But they're waiting for a body though. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I hope nobody shoots any. They are a lot human. There's a lot of human things about them and human traits, and you know, they must have some kind of feelings too, because they have young and they care for the young and they grow up. It seems, you know, they grow up as a family. I don't know why it has to come from a scientist to, you know, tell me that it does exist. I know it exists. I do believe they bury their dead like we do. So that's why we have a hard time finding anything.
What does a guy have to do to have an experience with a Sasquatch? I don't know. What am I doing wrong? I'm just out here. Maybe it's because I'm looking for it. Because I'm looking for it that it doesn't want to show itself. They're probably watching me right now. And they don't want anything to do with me. And I don't blame them. Because I'm one of those humans. Evil human destroying their environment. You know, what benefit would it bring them interacting with me? unless it's just to scare me off. And I'm trying to be as objective as I can towards the subject. Like, I'm not going to say they exist, and I'm not going to say they don't exist, because I really have no idea. And the only way I'll ever know for sure is if I see one myself. But until then, I have to be, I have to be a skeptic. I do want them to exist, and I think it's possible that they could exist, but I can't say for sure that they exist, and I don't want to say that to anybody. There's some cryptozoological creatures that I don't think are real. Like, I don't think the Loch Ness Monster exists. The Sasquatch thing, I mean, mountain gorillas weren't discovered for the longest time. It was only up until, like, I don't know, the late 1800s, I think, that they discovered the mountain gorilla. And up until then, it was just stories and rumors, and nobody really believed that they existed. And then one day they were found. And the population of those mountain gorillas is very small. I bet you it's a lot smaller than what they think the Sasquatch population is. That's why I think that Sasquatch could exist, because it could be just an undiscovered primate. I don't think it's Gigantopithecus. Like, if that's a good theory, I just don't think it is, because the reports of what the Sasquatch looks like just doesn't really coincide, like, with what I think Gigantopithecus looked like. All the drawings and sketches I've seen of Gigantopithecus, just, it doesn't look the same. It kind of walks on all fours, has so much upper body mass that it has to go on its front legs, on its arms, and I don't know, I don't think that Sasquatch and Gigantopithecus are the same animal. But maybe Sasquatch is kind of a more evolved form of Gigantopithecus, because through time, adaptation, and evolution can really change a species. My time at Henry Lake was running out, and I still hadn't found anything to make me believe 100% that the Sasquatch exists. I couldn't even find any trace of the rock that hit the tree near the shore. My trip was coming to an end, and I had nothing to really show for it. Probably scaring the shit out of all those loggers. They probably think it's a Sasquatch, but it's just me. That echoes more than I thought it would. If I'm gonna get a response, but I tried. Maybe they don't want to talk to me. Maybe they'll just kind of sneak up on me, and I don't know. Just don't know. It's getting dark and scary.
It has changed my life, I guess, a little bit. It made me more of a believer than I was before. I'm a believer for sure. Just because, like I said before, nothing can throw rocks like that. I can't even lift one or roll one of those rocks that I've seen that were thrown. It takes something very powerful. I'm glad that experience has happened to me, and I'm glad we were all right, of course, that they weren't aggressive. And like I said, they could have been waiting for us at the vehicle when we got back. Every time we went fishing, I'd be keeping my eyes open for black bears and maybe hoping to see something like a Bigfoot. And when you're looking for something, it doesn't seem like you can find anything or see anything. Having those 2 rock experiences was enough for me, especially after reading, that they do like throwing rocks and big ones. So.
After multiple nights with absolutely zero activity, I began packing up my equipment and prepared for a long journey home. Leaning more towards skepticism than anything else, I needed to speak with an expert immediately to get more insight and advice for future expeditions.
This track was cast by a deer hunter near Sayward, about what we call it the North Island, northern Vancouver Island. Did a very good job because it was a very shallow track, and so he built a dam around the outside using aluminum flashing, poured the plaster, and so we have a pretty good sense of how it hangs together. Basically the heel impression here, and then the forefoot impressed here. And only 4 toes registering. It's kind of interesting. The weight seems to have been on this side of the foot, and there's a toe here that didn't seem to register. And this was in drying mud, so some of the plaster ran into a crack in the mud. But nice track. Well, very good track. I mean, very clear toe definite. We actually think this could have been the same individual as this, because it's almost identical in length and shape, and this is a little bit unique, this bulbous big toe. Yeah, I mean, it's not 55 miles apart as the crow flies. But you have to be careful suggesting that it just sounds like, oh, you're getting way ahead of yourself. And I say, okay, anyway, we'll just let that go. But similar, anyway.
You guys heard that too?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
I got something walking back in there.
You do?
Where?
Is it up on the hill?
Careful. So where would we start?
All quiet at the moment.
Made it. So that was it, the first experience of our expedition, a loud, thundering crack in the woods as we were sitting around the campfire. We quickly grabbed our camera gear and began trekking through the woods to try and locate the source of the sound. After finding no trace of any creature, we made our way back to camp for the night. The next morning, we found something quite unusual.
Six.
There's 6 fingers there. That's weird. Just walking up to our car
It
here.
was parked. It'd be outside. That's the forest side.
Yeah,
This was the
beside
side to the woods, yeah.
Yeah, we were walking up to the car here. I was just about to get some more stuff before we head out, and we noticed a few of these kind of strange-looking handprints, like up to my hand. You can see what would be the palm, or what looks like the palm, is a little bit lower. So it almost looks as though something maybe put a hand on here and then peered in.
That bottom part just looks weird, like more fingers.
Yeah.
And they both are this, like, similar.
Yeah, I don't know why any of us would have put our hands on the window there.
Well, I didn't hear anything in the night either.
Nope.
So there's two, eh?
Yeah.
So there's 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4.
Was that there yesterday though? Like
Well,
when you were driving?
it was dusty here last night. Like the car's gotten a lot of dust since we've been here. So if there was something on the window there, wouldn't have shown up until the dust moved by. I don't recall seeing anything like that on.
I don't think it's a handprint though, because look, when I touch it, that's what, like, it would be
But
a lot clearer.
See finger ridges though. If
If there's oil and then
there
the
is
dust.
grease and then
okay.
the dust goes on it.
You
I
can see
see.
finger ridges like that.
But-
Line.
Yeah,
Or what do you mean?
but yeah, it was like this.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Let's see the palms. Can you see?
Doesn't look like there's much of a smear there.
No, you can see it's definitely like that's palm prints, but let's see.
They definitely look like fingertips.
Yeah.
And
Oh, they
But how
are.
is
you
it?
can
How is
see.
it? Yeah. Well. Yeah.
But the thumb, that doesn't line up. It's got to be pressed twice.
yeah.
But it smeared its palm, whoever did it, right?
Yeah, you can see like dermal ridges
Yeah.
on that. So it is something did touch.
Either us or
Yeah,
And it was like that, right? Or
we can't call that any kind of conclusive evidence, but
Like this and then like that.
why would you put your hands like that?
exactly.
Like,
Why
that's
would
just-
I ever? Like you would never push a door shut from the window. You'd always go down there, which is strange.
What's this?
what someone was like
That
Is that
could be.
anything?
That might
Unless
be.
someone
Yes.
else could.
I did peer in on the other side. But
Weird.
The handprints were creepy, and I had never seen anything like that before. They almost looked juvenile. They were really small, they had dermal ridges, and they were very oily. And the strange thing was, the night before, close to midnight, we had heard a loud crack in the woods, almost like a tree falling or something being thrown. And that made us very uneasy. So it was very strange that the next morning when we woke up, we discovered these handprints. 2 sets, 2 different sizes, very weird and in almost playful-like patterns.
Well, I follow up reports, when, some come to my attention and I follow up. And it's always interesting to me as a biologist, okay, people claim to have seen a Sasquatch. And I don't doubt people the way some others. I mean, it usually takes them quite a while to come forward and say, you won't believe this, but this is what I saw. And I'm saying, well, actually, I've heard enough reports and, seen enough drawings and things that I probably do believe it. But I'm interested in seeing where you saw it. And then I try to figure out why would it be there? Is it a great wildlife area? Is it a wetland or a seashore with maybe a clam beach or something like that, or a salmon stream? Or is it just sort of normal second growth conifer forest, which we have so much of around here, coniferous forest, in which case maybe it's just passing through. But then there's these reports that, it's been carrying a deer, or it's been digging shellfish. Now those are really interesting, because we actually we have started building a bit of an ecological profile, how it behaves, what it eats. And the behavior reports are so interesting, when people report stone throwing, loud branch breaking, the wood knocks, that sort of thing. I think, okay, there's some consistency here. We're getting a sense of how this animal tries to intimidate people, sometimes, maybe try to repel them from an area, and, a bit about what it eats and how it lives.
After trying to make sense of the handprints, we began our hike through the rugged, remote landscape of the Canadian Rockies. Our goal? To find any kind of evidence, physical or trace, of a giant upright relic hominid, and maybe, if we were lucky, to capture one on video. So this is the kind of general area where we heard the noises last night. It sounded like a big tree falling. As you can see, there's lots of deadfall, so lots of trees do fall here naturally. Last night there was very little wind, so it did seem kind of bizarre that it happened right next to our camp and right, as the sun was going down. So if these things are nocturnal, it was the perfect time. Maybe a way to try and scare us out of here. So right here, just a bit further down from where all those fallen trees, where there is a disturbance of some kind, this moss is kind of peeled back, and it kind of looks like there's like claw marks in here. So it was probably from a bear. We know there's lots of them in the area, so we'll probably just keep our eyes open for stuff like this. This moss is really good because when you step on it, it makes a really good impression. But I don't really see any other prints here from anybody other than us. Not even any kind of like bear track. So I guess we'll continue on and keep looking for things like that. After finding multiple disturbances in the moss and determining them to be nothing but signs of nearby bears, we stumbled upon something we never thought we'd actually find. What we have here, we've literally just hiked another 5 minutes from where we last were filming. But this right here looks like a naked human-like footprint. I don't know how it's gonna turn up on there, but this looks like a heel. It kind of narrows out here, and it looks like toes. I'd say it's probably 12 inches only. If this is from a Bigfoot, it's the first track I've ever found. And it's a shame it's in the moss, because it'd be nice to try and cast one. But it is definitely an impression. Put my glasses there for perspective. There's the end of the heel. I'd say it's double the length of the width of my glasses. So we have this track, but if you come over here, we also found a series of what appear to be grizzly bear tracks, and they look fresh. I mean, these are clear as day. Like, look how deep that is. So something was definitely walking through here very recently. Yeah, like it could have been last night, that noise we heard. I mean, this one, like that's a pretty big paw, and they just keep going. I don't think we should follow those.
Yeah. It's what? 300 meters away?
Yeah, pretty close. So this is a pretty dangerous place, apparently. What we'll probably do right now is kind of follow that potential Bigfoot track and see if we can find any more. Maybe set up a trail camera up here overnight. I don't think I really believed what I was seeing at first, and the odds that we would actually find something were incredibly slim. Could it actually be a track left behind by a Sasquatch? It sure looked that way. The toes were even splayed out, just like a juvenile's are said to be. The location the track was in was very remote and totally random. However, I had previously heard rumors that the general area was a great place to look for the creature. This was the kind of evidence I'd been looking for the past year, and it was finally right in front of my face. It took a while for it to sink in, but when I put the handprints on the vehicle door and the footprint together, I thought I might actually be onto something. Perhaps a juvenile Sasquatch was responsible for both pieces of evidence.
Well, myself, we were lucky to find tracks, good tracks, back in 1987, and that's the best. Then other people have found tracks and cast them, and we have some very nice examples of that right here on Vancouver Island and elsewhere. And for me as a biologist, the track casts are the best of evidence. I mean, we need to pull it all together, you know, and say, okay, we have the description, and we've had descriptions of the feet. And it's sometimes described as a broad foot. Well, and that's a sort of a consistent feature, that the Sasquatch foot isn't just an expanded version of the human foot, but it tends to be a very broad foot, broader proportionally than the human. It's a bit of a cliche, a guy holding a plaster cast. I try to, but it's important. Yeah. This is the original. It's been broken, as you can see. I've had to reinforce it, but this is the original of the one that my wife and I found. Unfortunately, a hiker stepped in this track before we got to cast it, so there was a bit of a boot print, which is unfortunate. But other than that, it's a really excellent cast. You know, shows the very stout, robust heel, toes very clear, kind of curled upwards. 15 inches, pretty close to average. I think 16 inches is the average length in John Green's files. So yeah, I mean, this is the track cast that I had on my desk since '87. It still took a few years before I said, "Come on, John, somebody should really be working on this." You know, biologists are usually get quite excited discovering new mammals and be the first to really work out stuff about new mammals. And I'd go off working on assignment with the United Nations, various parts of the world. I always thought, oh, I got to come back and some young biologist is going to have taken on the Sasquatch and built his reputation, and it'll be, you know, done. Yeah. Well, no young biologist is taking it on, and no one's taking it on. I mean, amateur investigators are, but no scientists. I think, my goodness, you know, it really is scientifically taboo. Very strange.
Are the ones behind you, those must be juveniles? Yeah,
that's right. These are from Jeff Meldum's collection, and this is pretty interesting because, I mean, it's a juvenile track, about just over between 7 and 8 inches in length, very, very wide, spreading toes. We have a track like this now in snow from the Coast Range here, gee, not 2 hours from Vancouver, possibly. Very, very nice, very similar to that, but much shorter, only 2.5 inches. So it's interesting because, you know, people say, oh, well, if you had a small Sasquatch track, it would look like a human. But no, these are actually quite different. You know, I mean, especially the spreading toes and the width in that one.
See anything else?
Just the bear tracks coming from that way.
You probably put it pretty high up.
Don't want to get Bigfoot's knees.
Pretty tall. Perfect. So we have what looks to be another track, and it again is human shaped. We got a heel. It kind of narrows down in the middle, and then kind of widens out again. But the weird thing about this one is that you could stick all your fingers in here and kind of curl them around. It's like there's toes. I mean, and that goes in about a couple inches. This one looks longer than the last one, maybe by 1 or 2 inches. But like, if that is a person, I mean, that is a really big foot. I guess that's why they call it Bigfoot. Like, your boot doesn't even, you still got a couple inches.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of talking before and kind of figured that if something wanted to walk through here and get away without leaving prints, it could hop on these logs, walk along the logs, and maybe eventually it has to step off, and this is what we have here, but I just don't know. I felt like I had struck gold. A second potential track found only meters ahead of the last one. The only problem was that I couldn't cast either of them in the moss without having the plaster running all the way through down to the soil. All I could do was capture visual evidence with my cameras. Already, Nordig was proving to be an excellent location for my search for Sasquatch.
We've got some really good eyewitness drawings that have been provided for us, and a lot of them are big adult males. You know, the wide shoulders, the really deep chest. They all seem to have the long arms. That's a pretty consistent thing. The very thick neck, sometimes a somewhat pointed head. Some are described as females because breasts are seen or because it's been seen carrying an infant. Others seem to be young adults or sub-adults, and these are much more human-like in their proportions, but still usually that thick neck and the long arms. But, you know, and then, you know, I mean, we actually have, you know, descriptions of the face, you know, a very wide mouth, thin lips, a very wide upper lip. A tendency, and there's a little controversy on the nose, whether it's the human type nose with downward facing nostrils or more of a flat gorilla-like nose, and we seem to hear both. Eyes seem to be deep set, brow ridges sometimes described, a receding forehead rather than a sharp one like ours, a rounded jaw rather than the sharp jaw of modern humans. So there's a lot of detail. And then the hair covering, usually complete hair covering, usually dark, but often reddish brown.
So yeah, that track that we saw back there was very similar to what I had seen years ago there, with the defined heel, the bridge of the foot, as well as the shape of the toes.
Yeah.
Looks almost identical to what I had seen.
This one in particular, though, was just strange because it digs. You could literally put your fingers all the way in and curl them around, and
You can tell there's some,
if something was hoofing it, they might kind of dig in.
certainly.
Well, It's just weird how there's only one. Unless it jumped on one of these logs, which it very well could have. The sun's gone down past the mountains now, and I actually just placed our last trail camera right in this stump here. So it's kind of facing the area where we seen some of the tracks earlier, and hopefully whatever comes down the slope in the middle of the night will get picked up by this camera.
Alright, so we're gonna throw some moss around this trail cam. There's been stories of other trappers and people out trying to find Bigfoot. They put up trail cams and weird stuff happens, like they get turned around or even completely destroyed. So we'll see if this works, if he is actually out there and an intelligent being. Probably won't be fooled by this, but can't hurt. That's the sensor too?
Yeah, that's the motion sensor. You better explain this one.
Okay, so we had like a little gopher around here, and I was
Chipmunk,
and I was feeding it banana chips for my trail mix, and yeah, he wouldn't take this last one right before the hike, so he ran off. So I placed it right here, right on this rock, and yeah, I was just sitting there a moment ago, and I looked. I was like, "Okay, that's where I put the banana chip," and now there's a mushroom there.
Like a rotten.
It's a rotten mushroom, yeah. But that's where the banana chip was. I don't know if it's anything, but that's a
Dude,
little
this
weird.
is like the third weird little thing that's happened at this camp. The rock, the handprint things, and this mushroom
Like, I don't see
swap
how
thing.
it could like blow the wind, blow it up there to that exact spot,
And
you know.
And this is like, we literally just got back from our little trek in the woods. So when we were gone, something was here? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, man, I don't know.
I guess when we go on our next trek, we should leave something.
Leave a banana. You should leave an apple there.
Yeah, we'll leave an apple, set up a camp. We should set up a camera right here. Because if stuff's happening in our camp, then I can mount it onto that sign there. Right at this area. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, man.
It is like a rotted mushroom, eh? Jesus.
But yeah, Jared was saying some animals are known to do that. I don't know if a chipmunk would come and drop that off.
I've heard of clever birds that, like, if you feed them long enough, they'll start bringing you things in return. I've never heard of a squirrel leaving a mushroom cap.
But it's definitely like something edible or something edible, right?
Yeah, a rotten mushroom. That is bizarre. Every time we leave.
The only thing that's been through here that we saw were the horses.
Yeah. First potential track of the day. This one is very inconclusive, but it has that same shape, very broad at the toes here, and kind of narrows down at the heel, which is right here. Probably 12, 13 inches. Looks old.
It's about the same size as the ones that we saw yesterday.
Yeah. Same shape too. And that was Curtis who found this one. You get credit for it, cameraman.
How's that kind of basic
This is like flattened.
footprint, kind of?
That's pushed down, but who knows, this litter could have easily just fallen on top of the track.
If it was a little bit better condition, we could cast one, but we'll keep our eyes open. Maybe there'll be more further down this trail. Same size too, though. Same size, same shape. Good eye, man.
There's the tradition of the Sasquatch in Aboriginal culture, you know, as Zunaqua, the wild woman of the woods, which so frequently is dismissed as supernatural or mythical in the sense of exclusively mythical, rather than saying, okay, it occurs in myth. Maybe there's a kernel of truth to that myth that warrants some investigation. And then there's lots of what I call historical accounts, and they go back into the 1800s, which have languished, you know. I mean, so the early historical accounts, okay, it was described as a monster, and people didn't know what to do. And sure, cataloging is a problem, you know. It seems to be a primate, which includes both apes and humans. And I used to be, I wouldn't say insistent on it being an upright great ape, but I thought that was a really good hypothesis. But that seems to repel a lot of investigators who say, oh, no, this is no ape, this is definitely human. Well, rather than get bogged down in that distinction at this point, I like to just say, well, it's a primate, which includes everything, or even an anthropoid, you know, that sort of thing, apes and humans, something like that. Back in the 60s, you know, and in those days, one collected specimens. It was not a controversial issue at all. Ornithologists went around with a shotgun and fine bird shot and collected skins and made skins, and it's just what was done. Well, then, you know, we've gone into a different period saying, no, there's no need to collect anymore, you know. You know, sometimes they say photographs are good enough, but then in the Sasquatch, the photograph is not good enough. Casts are not good enough. So I'm not proposing that we collect one. There may be an accidental, I mean, obviously my scientific colleagues would like to see a type specimen, but no one wants to advocate going out to collect one. Like we had one colleague who said, we need to collect one. And then we just put an end to this, and all the rest will become protected. Well, gee, he just took so much flack for that position. So, I mean, no one's going to say collect one. We hope that if there is an accidental roadkill or something, that specimen will become available for scientific examination.
I have to admit that after finding the first track, I felt like my mind was searching for anything at all that even slightly resembled a footprint. I was nervous that I would throw all caution to the wind and start believing that every impression could be a track. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you look into the clouds and believe you see certain shapes or images. I knew at this point that I had to be extremely objective to the things that I was seeing. Right here, we have another potential track, and I could just be imagining it, but what I kind of am visualizing is it coming to here and going around here, and it would be like the left foot coming. These would be where the toes are here. I mean, that's pretty big again. If this is the back, it's really hard to say. 13 inches, 14 inches. So something did step here. If it was a bear, could just be imagining things, but
You see how the foot almost appears to come back to about here.
yeah.
But the big toe impression there, possibly. Looks like some toes slid
It is the
into
typical
ground.
shape you'd see. It's very wide in the middle too. But what do you make that out? 13 inches, 14 inches?
I'd say roughly 13 inches.
Definitely some toes there. So right now I'm just going back to this last footprint we found, and I have a measuring tape, so I want to see how long it actually is. Okay, so here's the track. See if I can set this camera up a little bit better. Okay, so if this is legit, it puts it at around 12.5 inches. You can see how the toes look kind of splayed out, and that's typical of many footprints that have been found. Very broad in the middle of it as well, and that's also another feature that's well known. Finding lots of tracks today, including grizzly bear, so I'm gonna keep my wits about me.
So many Sasquatch reports seem to be single individuals, especially males. There's a few reports of small groups, a female with young, occasionally a larger group. It doesn't seem to have the social structure of like troops, like chimpanzees or bands. So the model, if it works, and I think it's the best model we have, is the orangutan. We have a male and female together in what they call a consortship for mating, and then the male goes off as a solitary individual again, and the female and young remain together. And I think that's might be the sort of situation we have here.
Earth, there's different kinds of humans in
Mm-hmm.
different countries.
Oh yeah.
It could be based on different areas.
Oh, variation. Yeah. The dimorphism it's talked about, and you like almost like you've seen one black bear, you've seen them all, you know, and you could have a drawing of a black bear and say, oh, that's just a black bear. They're all very much the same. In primates, you get all this variation, and just like in humans, you get a lot of variation. You know, genuine races in the physical sense. You know, it's a fact with different anatomical characteristics, and. I think of Jane Goodall's work on chimpanzees. She could recognize individuals, and they varied a lot. So in primates, you do get a lot of variation. So that's a good point. We're simply maybe talking about a range in like facial features.
Theories about Sasquatch behavior vary drastically from researcher to researcher, making it very difficult for the science of the creature to advance. Nobody knows for certain what the life of a Sasquatch is like, or how they behave in a group. All of the current ideas come from the gathering and interpretation of evidence that the Sasquatch may or may not have left behind, as well as from a multitude of eyewitness reports, which, if there's no evidence gathered, are not much more than hearsay.
It's so hard to attract the relevant scientists to this evidence because you mentioned the name Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and it drops off the list or gets very low on the list, or people are nervous, you know, because there's been hoaxes. So I don't want to get caught out in a hoax, you know, and so there's just this unwillingness for scientists to examine the evidence, which is really unfortunate. There's this wall, this blockage, and this is where I think we have to be careful about being conservative with the accounts, not overstating the case, and very careful about documenting evidence. You know, if there's a track, it really needs to be photographed and preferably cast, because from then on you have something to examine. But if it's just a report of, oh, this really big track, it's hard to do anything with that.
You know, a lot of people are driving by Port Alberni, and people have seen one cross the road, and freak out, you know. It's like, this thing has great big strides, and people are not used to that, right? And seeing something so big, and like lots of them are big and wide, and have huge strides and big feet, you know, and they're masters in the bush. You know, people label them as a scary monster and blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Can we not, in the absence of a type specimen, at least discuss the evidence and the very strong possibility that the Sasquatch does exist and that it is responsible for the tracks that we're seeing and the images that are appearing on film and the descriptions and the stones that are being thrown and some of the branch twisting that we're seeing. And I'm not asking for acceptance, but I am asking for scientific scrutiny of the evidence. I think that if we could just get to that point, it would be very healthy, much healthier than I think the present situation.
So I guess at the end of all of this, I have to ask myself the big question. Do I believe that the Sasquatch exists? After seeing the tracks in the moss with my own eyes, and witnessing all of the other strange occurrences that went on near Nordegg, I have to say that I believe more than ever that it very well could be a reality. Of course, I'll never really know 100% until I see the actual creature face to face. One thing is for sure, and that is the fact that there are thousands and thousands of kilometers of rugged wilderness out there that only the daring few will ever explore. The majority of people in this world live in big cities, and only occasionally step foot in the outdoors, and when they do this, they only break the surface of what is really out there. There are many places to hide, so when you think about it, it wouldn't be that hard for the Sasquatch to evade us for all these years. The quest for the Sasquatch is the ultimate adventure. It's a quest into the unknown, and it's a heck of a good reason to get outside and witness the true beauty of this planet. Maybe that's what's so alluring about the whole Bigfoot thing, is that it reminds us of the special places that lie beyond the concrete and skyscrapers. So I guess we can just start off, if you want to just tell me a bit about yourself and how you got into this Bigfoot thing initially.
Okay, my name is John Bindernagel. I'm a wildlife biologist, and I got into this, in third year university in Guelph, University of Guelph, Ontario, when I saw, I guess it was True magazine, which was part of the problem. I'm presenting to my classmates and to the professor a report of an ape man from True magazine, and they laughed. And I thought, oh shucks, you know, I was pretty idealistic in those days. I thought, well, can't we even talk about this? Well, apparently we couldn't. No, it was scientifically taboo then, and the amazing thing is that it's still, as I see it, it's still scientifically taboo now. But it got my interest up, and there was very little information available in those days. I think we wildlife biologists have dropped the ball. I mean, we're not examining these track casts, we're not considering the tracks, we're not considering the reports, we're not filing the reports that are coming in. And we, as scientists, have an obligation to try and make sense of it. And I don't want to sound self-righteous, but to me that doesn't sound that complicated. Well, I think it's bizarre is what I think it is. Because the evidence is so good. Really.